Hey everybody, Aaron here from Beansprout. I've got a cool little comparison video for you today. I actually have the vintage instrument that inspired me to start building instruments. I finally got my hands on another one after many years, and I have one of my instruments I built recently, and I thought we could show the differences and compare and contrast. So this goes back to over 10 years ago. I was traveling on tour with my band in Los Angeles, and we went to Dan Soybean Sawyer's house, his music studio, and he collects and has all kinds of great old banjo ukes. And I wanted to build banjo ukes, but I wanted to learn more about good ones. And so he got out instrument after instrument, and we compared them and played them and measured them. And, you know, some of them I liked, some of them I didn't. I made notes about what I liked. My favorite instrument, though, was one just like this. It's the brand name on it says American Conservatory. That would have been made by Washburn/Line and Healy in Chicago, probably in the late 20s, early 30s. It just stuck in my head, and a lot of the things about it I copied and have been running with since. But I never saw one again in person till recently when I found this one broken on eBay. It's not a terribly rare or valuable instrument. I just have not come across another one that I could get my hands on. What did I like about it? It's got an 8-inch pot. It's got 12 hooks and nuts on the hardware. It has a concert length scale, although this one is, I would say it's right in between what we would call now today a concert and a tenor scale. It's like 16, a little over 16 inches. So I like that. Although the nut is pretty narrow compared to modern standards. The hardware is pretty high quality. This stuff like this, Brooks Maston in Portland has done a good job recently of copying some of these little designs. This one seems to be made of Honduras mahogany, stained dark. It's got a laminated rim, pretty thin laminated rim, and there's no metal tone ring. It's just a turned hoop on turned bearing edge on the top. Of course, they didn't have geared tuners then or radius fretboards. And then check out this little tiny bridge. I think that probably was the original bridge. These Waverly tail pieces are nice. They're functional for ball ends or loop ends. It's kind of a good design. So back then I was just fascinated with it, and I'm happy to see one again. One thing I kind of like that modern players don't really like is that the neck gets gradually bigger as it goes. I like that. A lot of folks don't. I'm curious if I could have the courage to bring back that sort of design. Because I think it would be nice. When I opened this one up, I found a little pencil mark inside the mortise here of a number 3. Somebody wrote that in the factory as their batch number or something. It was kind of fun to see that. And then also I could see the tool marks inside the heel where they had carefully chiseled out to make a good fit. Other little marks are kind of interesting. On the sides of the dowel stick, it's not sanded or planed. It's just straight off the table saw. So you can see the table saw, circular saw blade marks. It's a nice little instrument. So I put a skin head on it. That's what it would have had originally, of course. It's pretty bright and poppy. Makes a nice kind of vintage sound, but it's not annoying and twangy. It's kind of got a good balance there. I think the thin bridge, thin rim, skin head, kind of lightweight hardware, lightweight other stuff probably makes it seem that way. But there's lots of these things I still like and use in the same way. So yeah, that's the American Conservatory. And then my modern instruments, what makes them different? My rims are a little thicker, and instead of a laminated rim, they're a block rim. I think it makes for a warmer tone, although I have been taking these rims down a little thinner to get closer to that recently. I've got a wider nut here because modern players seem to be used to that. Geared tuners, radius fretboard, things like that. Also, I'm using the same number of hooks and nuts, but the hardware on this hardware is from Balsam Banjo Works. It's definitely a little beefier than this instrument. I'm kind of curious what it would be like to come down to this weight of hardware. I'd have to make my own, of course, but it could be fun. This one's got a 15.5 inch scale, I think. 15 1/4, 15 1/2. Anyway, a little bit shorter scale than this. And I guess on this one I made for myself. So I did taper this up to try to have that feel like the old one. You can see this heel shape, which I use, which people have criticized quite a bit. You can see where it comes from, although this one's quite a bit longer. I made it shorter just so people can reach the higher frets more easily. Yeah, and also I made this one out of white oak, so it's quite a bit heavier than the original mahogany one. I might make some mahogany ones and see what it feels like. But you can see, you know, roughly the shape of the headstock I've copied over time. Yeah. Sound probably the same volume. I think mine has a little more depth and sustain to it. It's kind of hard to say. Maybe you guys can chime in with what you think. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to come back to what originally inspired me and realize that it's pretty close. I spent 10 years of my life trying to improve on a thing that didn't need much improvement. I think that, you know, some of the modern things I've done for playability, like geared tuners, radius fretboard, slightly wider nut width, those things have all been good. But I'm curious about seeing how much closer I can get to the original. Maybe lighter weight hardware over time, maybe smaller bridges, maybe try some mahogany instead of the harder woods I've been using. But there they are, pretty cool. Cheers.